everyone, welcome back to Just Listen to One podcast. I am very happy that you guys made it to this episode. I am going to be talking about the famous Helen Keller. So let's just get right into the podcast. So Helen was born June 27th in 1880. And she passed away at the age of 87 on June 1st, 1968. And she passed away from natural causes. Keller lost both of her sight and hearing just at 19 months old. In 1882, she contracted an illness called brain fever by the family doctor that produced in high body temperature. The true nature of the illness remains a mystery today, though some experts believe that it might have been a scarlet fever or some kind of that nature of illness. Within a few days after the fever broke, Keller's mother noticed that her daughter didn't show any reaction when the doorbell was rung or when a hand was waved in front of her face. As Keller grew into childhood, she developed a limited method of communication with her companion, Martha Washington, the young daughter of a family cook. The two had created a type of sign language. By the time Helen was 7, they invented more than 60 signs of communication with each other. During this time, Helen had also become very wild and unruly. She would kick and scream when angry and giggled uncontrollably when happy. She tormented Martha and inflicted raging tantrums on her parents. Helen worked with her teacher, Anne Sullivan, for 49 years from 1887 until Sullivan's death in 1936. In 1932, Sullivan experienced health problems and lost her sight completely. A young woman named Polly Thompson, who had begun working as a security for Helen and Sullivan in 1914, became Helen's constant companion upon Sullivan's death. Looking for answers and inspiration, Helen's mother came across a travel log by Charles Dickens' American Notes in 1886. She read of the successful education of another deaf and blind child named Laura Bridgman. As soon dispatched Keller and her father to Baltimore, Maryland, to see a specialist, Dr. J. Julian Chisholm. After examining Keller, he recommended that she see Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, who was working with deaf children at that time. Belle met with Helen and her parents and suggested that they travel to Perkins Institute for the Blind in Boston, Massachusetts. There, the family met with the school's director, Michael. He suggested Keller worked with one of the institute's most recent graduates, Sullivan. On March 3rd, 1887, Sullivan went to Keller's home in Alabama and immediately went to work. She began by teaching the 6-year-old Keller finger spelling, starting with the word doll. To help Keller understand the gift of the doll, she had it brought along. Other words would follow. At first, Helen was curious, then defeated, refusing to cooperate with Sullivan's instructions. When Helen did cooperate, Sullivan could tell that she wasn't making the connections between the objects and the letters spelled out in her hand. Sullivan kept working on it, forcing Helen to go through the progress. As Helen's frustration grew, her tantrums increased. Finally, Sullivan demanded that she and Keller be isolated from the rest of the family for a time being, so that Helen could concentrate only on Sullivan's instructions. They moved to a cottage on the platform. In a dramatic struggle, Sullivan taught Keller the word water. She helped her make the connection between the objects of the letters by only taking Helen out to the water pump and placing Helen's hand under the spout. While Sullivan moved the lever to flush cool water over Helen's hand, she would spell out the word W-A-T-E-R on Helen's other hand. Helen understood and repeated the word in Sullivan's hand. She then pronounced the ground, demanding to know its letter name. Sullivan followed her, spell out the word into her hand. Helen moved to other objects with Sullivan in 2. By nightfall, she had learned 30 words. In 1890, Helen began speech classes at Horace Mann School for the Deaf in Boston. She would toil for 25 years to learn to speak so that others could understand her. From 1894 to 1896, Helen attended the Wright Humpson School for the Deaf in New York City. There, she worked on improving her communication skills and studied regular economic subjects. Around this time, Helen became determined to attend college. In 1896, she attended the Cambridge School for Young Ladies and Preparatory School for Women. As her story became known to the general public, she began to meet famous and influential people. One of them was a writer, Mark Twain, who was very impressed with her, and they became friends. Helen was the first person with deaf blindness to earn a college degree. She was extremely She was really into politics. In addition to being a member of the Society Party, Helen was a founder of the American Civil Liberties Union, as known as the ACLU. She was an outspoken advocate for women's rights and a strong supporter of birth control, all radical views for a woman in the early 20th century. Helen fell in love and almost eloped. She was in her late 30s when Sullivan fell suddenly ill. Helen brought in a private security named Peter Fagan, with whom she fell in love and planned to elope. Yet her family strongly object because they believe that women with disabilities should not get married. She remains influential and respected even after her death. In 1999, her name appeared on Time magazine's list of the 100 most important figures of the 20th century, alongside such iconic figures such as Albert Einstein, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and more. She has accomplished some more things also. That's an impressive accomplishment for anyone, and more so for a woman who couldn't see or hear. So that is it for this episode, and I just want to say thank you for listening to today's episode. And I just want to let you guys know, just a reminder, that no matter where you're at in life or what you're going through, you can still do anything. And just don't forget to keep pushing. So from that being said, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to support my podcast and share, and hopefully it will inspire others, and I hope it's inspired you. And thank you so much for just listening to one.